guys, welcome to my very first Q&A video. My name is Val, in case you don't know, and a few weeks back I asked you guys if you had any questions for me, and turns out that you do. And a lot of people actually had questions about nutrition, so that's the first thing I'm going to talk about. To start things off, I do want to say that I am not a nutritionist. I don't have a certification, but I've been kind of studying nutrition for quite a few years, probably like 10 years. I've been really interested in nutrition. It's something that, I've even used myself as a test subject to see what works, what doesn't, and I found what works for me. So that's what I'm going to talk about. I am on a nutrition plan and I've posted videos about it before, and you can actually, I'm going to put a little link up here, see what I'm eating on a day-to-day basis right now to lose weight. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm going to tell you what works for me, because what else am I supposed to say? I know a lot of people have different views on nutrition. Some like carbs, some don't. Some do high fats, low carb. That doesn't work very well for me. I tend to really gas out during a workout if I don't have carbs. So what I've found, and the nutrition plan I'm doing right now, is great for that, because you get to eat carbs close to your workouts, and I think that's the key. If you're somebody who doesn't really work out that much or goes for a run once in a while, you probably don't need to focus that much on carbs. But if you're someone who goes to the gym regularly, lifts weights, does like 2-hour workouts, you're gonna need to focus your carbs around your workouts. So that's the main thing. And I know a lot of you were wondering about nutrition before, during, and after workouts, and so that's the main thing I want to tell you. Before workouts, you want to have some carbs. You want to have some carbs and protein, because you need to have a full tank before you get to the gym, right? So what I do, 2 to 3 hours before a workout, I eat some protein, I eat some vegetables, obviously, and then I eat some carbs that are a little more dense. What I mean by dense, it's the same amount of, grams of carbs, it's just that they're in a form that is more dense and that will keep me full until I get to the gym. And by dense, I mean sometimes it's oatmeal, sometimes it's rice, or sweet potatoes, something that keeps me full. But I don't want to be too full, because who wants to train on a full stomach and puke everywhere? Not me. So because there's that 2 to 3 hour window, I won't be that full when I get to the gym. So during my workout, I have what I call an intra shake. Basically, it's a shake that's made of protein powder. It's a big shaker with water, protein powder, and Gatorade. And the reason for the Gatorade is because it's a simple sugar. It's something that's easily digestible, especially in water, and that's gonna fuel my workout while I'm working out. I don't have time to eat a meal during my workouts, but I do have time to sip on something. So that's the reason for that. And the reason for the shake also is so that when you're training, you get some fuel, and you also keep your muscle from breaking down too much. And I know that I used to get really hungry when I was doing Olympic lifting, usually when I got to the squats. For some reason, when I got to the squats, it was like end of hour 2, and I would just be starving. I would be starving, tired, I would bomb out. It wasn't working for me. And I figured out that it's probably because I wasn't eating enough first, but also I just didn't have any food for X amount of time. So to fuel my workout, to feed my body for my workout, really helped change the game for me. I got just so much more energy out of it, and I feel like this is probably why a lot of people rely on carbs for training and for athletic performance, is because you feel like you can do more. You feel like your body just has more in the tank, and so if you do more, you probably burn more fat in the process, and you probably build more muscle in the process too. So that's why I have that, and I think it works really well for me. And then after my workout, I have more protein and more carbs, and that's just how it goes. Because although you're drinking during your workout, you're also just, you're emptying that tank as you go along. So after your workout, you're gonna wanna replenish those stores and help your body recover. So that's why you get protein, that's why you get the carbs. So those carbohydrates, sometimes I take them in a lighter form, especially in the summer, like bread, if you can eat bread, or just something that's lighter in my stomach, because sometimes I get home and I'm not that hungry. And then before bed, I get another shake, and that's all in my program. So if you want to do that or not, that's up to you. But I get another protein shake before going to sleep, and no, it's not going to make me fat. And I get carbs when I work out hard enough, and I get some fats, and that just puts me right to sleep. And again, all of this protein, all of these carbs are to help my body recover. So I think that works really well. happier overall, and I can do a lot more during the week if I stick to that plan. Again, these are things that work for me. If you're cool with high fat to low carb, you do that, you do you. But if you feel like you're hitting a wall, let's say during your workouts, or you're really hungry, try a little bit of Gatorade powder or Tang, Kool-Aid. A little bit of sugar during your workout in your water is probably going to help you if you're feeling a little bit weak or just feel like you're not accomplishing that much. And on that note, somebody asked about soreness. Jen, you said that you get really sore and then you can't work out for a few days, even though you're stretching. My answer to that would be to look at your nutrition first, because you're probably under recovering. And so food is the first thing I look at. Basically, are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough carbs? And then I look at other things like sleep. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting enough water? Because don't forget, water is great for flushing out toxins, but it's also what your body is made of. So if you want it to work properly, you need to get enough water. And also, another thing that you might want to look at is your warm-up. I know you're stretching a lot, but maybe do more like a dynamic warm-up before you start working out, basically. So if you don't have a place to run around and do things, maybe start your workout slower and work up to a certain intensity. Because if you just start off really fast, you're probably just not ready for that yet. And you can't just expect your body to perform and then feel fine after. Another thing is your cool down. I don't know if you do a cool down, if you stretch after, but maybe incorporate something like a lacrosse ball or those rollers that are made, the rubber ones are the best. The foam ones are kind of weak. You want the ones that are hard, because the harder the better. But really it's just because it will help work out the kinks just like a lacrosse ball does. And it also gets some blood flowing because of those little teeth. And blood is always great because it flushes out the toxins just like water does. So you want to flush out all the things that are built up in your muscles while you worked out. So if you do all of those things and you're still sore, I would say try a magnesium supplement. I used to take that a lot, but since I've cleaned up my food, since I've started eating more protein and more carbs, I don't need it that much, but some days I still do, and some days I feel like it's just the only thing that's gonna help, and some days you're just gonna be sore and you're gonna have to accept it, but it really helps just cutting it out. And I feel like if I take a magnesium supplement, I can probably train the next day. And Jen, you had another question, this time about training gear. You talked about your tops riding up or your pants going down. I think this is a problem that a lot of girls can relate to. My take on that is if you have a top that is very bouncy, like made of Lycra, it's gonna go everywhere. It's just gonna bounce around, and it's just flexible fabric. It wants to roll up, basically, especially if it's too small or in the smaller category. Also, if it's cut near your waist, I found that every time you bend over, those things will just fly up. So what I do for that is I get something that's more like a fabric, like a t-shirt, and I also get them wider and longer so that I can just basically tie them up at the right height and they won't bother me as much. And then if it's too long, you can also just tuck it in your pants and it won't go anywhere. As for pants, now that's a little harder because sometimes it's just not the right fit and the right brand, maybe even. Some brands I just can't wear. So you have to be careful about that. But if you find pants that look really good, they just kind of ride down a little bit, I would say adding a drawstring. Sometimes you can do that yourself, or sometimes look at the stitching of your pants. If they're stitched lower on your calf, let's say, and they're tied around there, they tend to ride down more than if they're tied around your knee. So usually what I do is I just hike them up and see if they stop riding down. I got another question about training gear, this time more about the technical stuff like wrist wraps, knee sleeves, belts, I guess. My take on that is not very popular. I'm of the opinion that if I use those things, I will depend on those things, and that doesn't sit well with me. I feel like if I need to use wraps or a belt, it's because I have a weakness that I need to work on. So I only use lifting shoes for Olympic lifts. I try not to squat with lifting shoes because I want proper form and strength. I only use a belt when it's really, really heavy and my core is really, really tired. Otherwise, I stay away. But if you really want to get technical, I say wrist wraps work well because your hands and your wrists are tiny parts of your body that get easily tired. So let's say the rest of your body's fine. You can use wrist wraps to supplement the strength that you're losing, and so you can keep working out, especially with high volume, high weights or high reps. And if your hands are tired, you can't lift anymore, that's no good. So I think that helps in the short term, but it might be a weakness that you probably need to work on still. Otherwise, like knee sleeves are probably made more to keep your joint warm. I think people think they're more for support, but they're tighter in the beginning, and then as you use them, they just kind of become this thing that you slip on. So in my opinion, if you want knee support, you should go with knee wraps, the ones that powerlifters use. So those things, you know they work because powerlifters lift a shit ton of weight. So if they didn't use them, they would collapse. So if you want something that really supports you and maybe you had knee surgery or something, I would use those, although I'm still very much on the team of working on your weaknesses because, you know, I don't wear my belt often even. I've been told I should wear a lifting belt because I've had back problems in the past, but I know that's because my core is weak, so I just work on my core more. And the last question I got was a really good one about motivation. More specifically about not losing focus and not losing motivation when you hit a training plateau. And I have hit many a plateau, so I know what I'm talking about. And it's normal to get, you know, discouraged, especially when you have a big goal, because on the day-to-day, you're not going to see changes. Change doesn't happen overnight. So my solution for that is actually celebrating something every day. Just find something to celebrate and focus on that. Every day, your body's changing in tiny, tiny increments. And so you need to find that increment and just celebrate the fuck out of it. Even if it's not that impressive, I will still give you a high five. And to help with that, I usually keep a running list of my PRs, like from 2 years ago. Because I know that even if I lifted the same weight 2 years ago, I know for a fact that my form was shit back then. And that makes me feel better about myself. Also, just PRs that aren't really PRs, like maybe your form's better or maybe it's like a 5 rep max, that doesn't really count for anything for anyone except for you, because you know that 2 years ago you couldn't lift that weight 5 times, but now you can. Even if you're lifting it 5 times, 5 days a week, you're still doing better than you were doing 2 years ago. I also keep old pictures of myself, and sometimes I look better in those old pictures, but I also know that I was skinnier because I wasn't that strong. So now I feel better about myself because I know I'm stronger, so I don't care if I weigh 20 pounds more. I'm still in a better place right now. And even if you feel like maybe 2 years ago you looked better, you were fitter, just use that as motivation for yourself. And don't forget that it's not always about the weight, it's not always about your weight or how you look. Sometimes it's about how you feel. Some days I just feel really strong. I feel solid. I feel like the squat I'm doing is just going up and down like nobody's business and nobody can stop me. Those days need to be celebrated because it's not a milestone. It's not something that can be written down and people can marvel at it. But for you, it's a success. And I think that deserves an applause. Even just a really tiny internal applause. And usually that makes me feel better when I hit a plateau. So guys, I hope that answers all your questions. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, it would be really nice if you gave me a thumbs up and you subscribe to my YouTube channel because I love seeing new faces on here. And as always, ask me your questions in the comments or on social media, and I will see you next week. Bye!
Oh, this you crazy mother...